He doesn't see you. Not really. Not in the way you long to be seen. You smile, you hold space, you do everything right. Still, you feel invisible, misunderstood, like no matter how soft you are, how strong you try to be, how much you give, something in them stays cold, unmoved, and deep down you wonder, is it me? Is there something about me that makes men lose interest? Pull away. Choose someone else. You carry a tenderness you don't know what to do with. You bury it under humor, independence, hustle, or you wrap it around someone else's wounds and call it love. You think if you care hard enough, prove yourself enough, they'll wake up and treat you the way you dream of being treated. But something's not working. It's not that you're broken. It's not that you're too much. It's not that you're not enough. The truth is quieter than that. The truth is, you've been leading with a part of yourself that was never meant to hold the weight of love. And the part that was meant for that, you exiled her, silenced her. You had to because the world told you she was weak, emotional, dramatic, unstable. But she's the key. This video is for the part of you that's tired of fighting for love, tired of over-explaining your heart, tired of collapsing into someone else's approval just to feel worthy for a few minutes. We're going to talk about the feminine shift that changes how men treat you, not because it manipulates them, but because it changes you. It brings you back to the version of yourself you buried to survive. And when you return to her, they feel it. Everyone feels it. This isn't advice. This is remembrance. If you're ready for that kind of homecoming, subscribe now. Like this video if it already feels like truth. And breathe, because this is for you. There's a moment in every woman's life when her heart breaks in a way that no one sees. Not because of the breakup, not because of the betrayal, but because she realizes she abandoned herself to be loved. She gave up softness to be taken seriously. She gave up needs to avoid being too much. She gave up rest to be respected. And now, here she is exhausted, numb, and wondering why the love she receives feels so empty. That's not weakness. That's survival. That's what you learned to do. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that your worth depended on how useful, pleasing, or chill you could be. You weren't told your inner world mattered. You weren't taught to sit with emotion, only to hide it. You weren't guided back to your feminine nature, you were pulled out of it and told to perform. And so you became who you needed to be to not be left. But here's the part no one talks about. The masculine doesn't truly connect to performance. He doesn't fall in love with your strength, or your coolness, or your perfection. He falls in love with your presence. The raw, real, unfiltered essence of you. The version that's not trying to win or chase or fix anything. And yet, that version, she's often the one that's been rejected the most. She's the one who cried too loud, felt too much, asked too often. She's the one who got hurt when she was honest. So you built armor around her. You became the chill girl, the strong one, the healer. But you still feel unseen, because the real you hasn't been allowed to come out. That's the shift. The inner feminine shift is not about becoming softer for someone else. It's about returning to the softness you already are without shame. It's about being with your feelings instead of controlling them. It's about creating space for your intuition, your body, your truth, to lead. And when you do that, when you truly begin to live from that place, everything changes, including the way men treat you, because now you're no longer seeking love from a wounded place. You're embodying it. You're no longer shape-shifting to avoid abandonment. You're sitting inside your own presence so fully. They either rise to meet you or fall away. That's the shift. But to live it, you have to meet the version of you that's been locked away. She's not hiding. She's waiting. You've met her before, maybe only in quiet moments. Maybe only when you're alone, and the world isn't asking you to be anything. She's the part of you that doesn't rush, that doesn't perform, that doesn't apologize for crying, or laughing too loudly, or wanting more. She was always there before the heart breaks, before the overthinking, before the need to manage everyone else's reactions. She is your root, the source of your knowing, and she's been asking you to come back. But here's the truth about coming back to her: it feels like dying. Not physically, but ego deep. It feels like watching the woman you pretended to be go quiet, the one who had it all together, the one who never needed help, the one who knew how to keep people close even when she was crumbling. You learned her so well. She got you through things no one knows you survived, and you loved her for that. You still do. But she was built on fear. She was built to be accepted. She was built so you'd never be left behind again. That's why the feminine shift can feel terrifying at first, because it asks you to stop managing love and start receiving it. It asks you to drop the control you've used as protection. It asks you to feel what you've been avoiding, the grief of being unseen, the pain of giving so much to people who never gave it back, the confusion of wanting love and pushing it away at the same time. But when you feel it, when you really let it rise through you without numbing, blaming, or fixing, you begin to understand what Carl Jung meant when he said that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a part of yourself, but by integration. You do not heal by rejecting your masculine edge. You heal by inviting your feminine core back to the table. And she is not weak. She is the storm and the stillness. She is the part of you that walks into a room and doesn't ask, "Will they want me?" but instead whispers, "Can they hold me?" She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't shrink. She doesn't silence her knowing just to be chosen. And because of that, she shifts everything. Men feel it. They may not understand it, but they feel it. Your energy no longer says, "Please love me." It says, "I already do." And the men who cannot meet you there, they fall away. Not because you did anything wrong, but because their nervous system isn't ready for a woman who doesn't need to be saved or fixed or validated, just deeply met. That's the moment it all changes. You don't need to scream to be heard anymore. When you return to your inner feminine, your presence does the speaking. It's not loud. It's not showy, but it's undeniable. It's the kind of energy that says, "I don't chase. I don't prove. I remember who I am." And that memory? It's powerful, because for so long you forgot. Not in a conscious way, but in that quiet, tragic way where you slowly stopped asking for what you needed. You convinced yourself your desires were burdens, that your softness made you unlovable, that your hunger for real connection made you needy, and so you settled. For attention instead of affection, for being needed instead of being cherished, for crumbs instead of presence. But something inside you kept whispering, "This isn't it." You might have ignored it for a while. You might have told yourself that this is just what love looks like now, texting games, situationships, pretending you're fine when you're starving for someone to just see you. And still, that whisper grew louder, because the feminine doesn't die. She waits. And when you finally get quiet enough, when the noise of other people's opinions dies down, when the anxiety and self-blame run out of fuel, you hear her, and she says something terrifying and beautiful. You were never meant to beg. That shift doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how men relate to you. Because you're no longer handing over your power and calling it love. You're no longer abandoning your needs in the hope someone will meet them. You're rooted now. And rooted women are magnetic, not because they're trying to be, but because their energy carries weight. It's felt. It lingers. It makes the people around them pause. And men who are still searching for validation in controlling someone else, they don't stay. Because your groundedness exposes their chaos. Your boundaries reveal their avoidance. Your softness becomes a mirror. But men who are ready, men who are secure enough in themselves to truly connect, they are drawn to her, not to the performance, not to the roles, but to the real. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop reaching for them to complete you is the moment they feel safest to come closer. Because now, there's no game, no pressure, no mask, just presence. It's not about being feminine to attract a man. It's about embodying your feminine because it's who you are. Everything that comes after that is aligned. There's a moment that changes everything quietly, without announcement. You catch your reflection in the mirror, and for the first time in years, you don't see someone waiting to be chosen. You see someone who's already claimed herself, not in some grand, perfect, Instagrammable way, but in a raw, tender, grounded way. A woman who no longer abandons her emotions for the sake of harmony. A woman who no longer swallows her truth just to keep a connection alive. A woman who understands that intimacy without safety isn't love, it's self-betrayal. This is the shift that happens when your inner feminine is no longer something you perform, but something you honor, and with it comes a new kind of clarity. Suddenly, you're no longer confused by mixed signals. You're no longer stuck in the loop of decoding a man's every action. You're no longer tolerating crumbs and calling it patience, because now you're not operating from fear. You're not needing someone to define your worth. You're anchored, and from that place, you feel everything more sharply. You feel when a man is only attracted to your light but terrified of your depth. You feel when he wants your body but not your truth. You feel when he's drawn to your softness but runs from your standards. And instead of fighting it, trying to fix, shrink, or save, you let it fall away. Not because you're bitter, but because you've learned to trust yourself more than you trust someone else's potential. You've stopped asking, "Why didn't he choose me?" and started asking, "Why did I forget to choose myself?" That's the moment you stop romanticizing pain. That's the moment you stop calling your emotional labor love. That's the moment your relationships shift, because your energy no longer tolerates half-presence. You're not here to be managed. You're not here to be understood only in fragments. You're here to be met. And when a man senses that, when he feels that you are not waiting for him, but open to him from a place of wholeness, everything about the dynamic changes. Now, he's not in a position of control. He's in a position of invitation, and that invitation, it's sacred. It's not loud. It's not needy. It simply says, come closer if you can meet me here. But if you can't, I'll still be here. Whole, rooted, home. The feminine doesn't threaten. She doesn't chase. She doesn't convince. Her power lives in what she's willing to walk away from. Not in anger, but in alignment. And that's what so many men have never truly encountered. A woman who doesn't need to be chosen to feel valid. A woman who doesn't spin herself into someone smaller just to keep a man interested. A woman who can hold space without losing herself inside someone else's wounds. The world taught you that to be loved, you had to abandon parts of yourself. It called it maturity. It called it strength. It called it being the bigger person. But now you're starting to see how costly that kind of love was. How it drained you. How it taught you to be okay with loneliness. As long as it meant someone else wasn't uncomfortable. You've paid enough. You've poured your energy into fixing what was never yours to carry. You've asked yourself what you did wrong every time someone pulled away. You've confused emotional unavailability for mystery. You've mistaken intensity for intimacy. You've kept your heart open for people who never had the capacity to hold it. But now you're remembering. You're remembering what it feels like to trust your own energy again. To stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. To be so rooted in your own presence that anything less than emotional safety feels foreign. And with that remembrance comes discernment. You no longer seek approval in someone's attention. You seek connection in their capacity. You no longer ask, do they like me? You ask, does my nervous system feel safe with them? That's what changes how men treat you. Not your appearance, not your charm, not how agreeable or nurturing or low maintenance you are, but your standard of energetic safety. And when you raise that standard not from defense, but from love, something magnetic happens. You stop collapsing into old patterns. You stop re-entering old wounds hoping for a different outcome. You stop mistaking chaos for chemistry. You start allowing love to be simple, because now you trust that the right connection won't require you to betray your own heart just to keep it alive. There's a kind of woman who feels like peace when you sit next to her. Not because she's always calm, but because she's honest. Honest with her emotions, honest with her needs, honest with her energy. She doesn't fake okay when she's hurting. She doesn't pretend to be unbothered when she's disappointed. She doesn't weaponize silence, she uses truth. That woman doesn't arrive by accident. She is born the moment another version of her is allowed to die, the one who overcompensated, who apologized for existing, who tried to earn love by becoming exactly what someone else wanted. You might be in that space right now, that in-between, where you're not who you used to be, but not fully embodied in who you're becoming. You feel it in your body, the tension between holding back and letting go, the part of you that still wants to be chosen, and the deeper part that wants to be free. This shift, it's not overnight. It's 1,000 small decisions to stop betraying yourself. It's letting the tears come instead of swallowing them. It's telling the truth when you'd rather people please. It's being alone for a while, truly alone, so you can hear your own voice again. And when you do, the way men relate to you transforms. You stop being a mirror for their projections and become a mirror for their depth. They can't play the same games with you. They can't emotionally disappear without you noticing. They can't charm their way past your intuition, because now you're not relating from the surface. You're not waiting to be rescued. You're not offering your body while hiding your soul. You're sitting in your full expression, in your knowing, in your softness. And men feel that. Even the ones who don't have the language for it. Even the ones who don't understand why they feel different around you. It's because your energy no longer says, will you give me love? It says, will you meet me in truth? And that question, spoken or not, filters everything. The ones who can't meet you will drift. The ones who can, they won't be intimidated by your depth. They'll feel relieved by it. Because the feminine, when fully remembered, becomes an invitation into something the world has forgotten. Realness, stillness, presence, and love that doesn't require you to leave yourself behind. And here's the most surprising part: the more you live from your feminine center, the less you need to talk about it. You don't have to explain why you're choosing peace. You don't have to justify why you're not available for emotional chaos. You don't have to defend your standards. Your energy becomes your language. You walk into a room and speak without words. You speak through your stillness, through your softness that no longer seeks permission, through your boundaries that are no longer born from fear, but from self-trust. That's what changes the way men respond to you. They feel the difference between a woman asking for love and a woman being love. They notice how you don't need their validation to stand tall. They sense your clarity, and it either draws them in or sends them running, and you don't chase either outcome. Because now you're no longer attaching your worth to whether a man stays. You've reconnected with something far deeper, your own presence. This is what Jung tried to name, in his own way, that we are not whole when we deny our nature. that the feminine and the masculine aren't roles, they're energies. And when the feminine is denied, we don't just lose softness, we lose connection, we lose intuition, we lose our ability to feel life instead of just survive it. You were never meant to survive your way through love. You were meant to feel safe in it. You were meant to be cherished without performing. You were meant to be understood without shrinking. But first, you must be willing to live as if that kind of love is real. Even if you've never seen it before, even if no one's ever given it to you, you begin by giving it to yourself. That's the gateway, because the woman who knows her own worth does not ask for it. She doesn't audition. She doesn't bend to be kept. She simply rests in herself, and that resting becomes a call only the present and emotionally available can answer. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. That version of you? She doesn't just change how men treat you, she changes what kind of men even reach for you. There's a quiet revolution happening inside you. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't look loud. But it is everything. Because for the first time, you are no longer bending yourself to fit into someone else's story. You are writing your own, and in that story, you're not the woman who waits for love to come knocking. You're not the one who keeps the peace at the expense of her soul. You're not the fixer, the forgiver, the forever giver. Not anymore. You are the woman who listens to her body before she listens to someone's excuses, who trusts her intuition even when it scares her, who feels grief fully, joyfully, lovefully, and refuses to numb herself just to seem cool. And yes, this changes how men treat you. Because now, you're not trying to prove your worth, you're revealing it. You're not performing femininity to get a man. You're embodying it because it's the most honest way to live. And that embodiment? It shakes the room. It's in your eye contact that doesn't look away. It's in the way you speak truth without making yourself small. It's in your silence that says more than begging ever could. And the men who are only used to women giving everything in exchange for breadcrumbs, they don't know what to do with a woman like you. They don't know how to hold someone who doesn't need them, but who chooses connection from a place of wholeness. That kind of feminine presence calls a man into his own depth. It asks, can you be here, in this moment, with nothing to fix, nothing to prove? Can you see me not as an object, but as a mirror, not as a prize, but as a person? And if he can't, you no longer shrink. You no longer explain your standards as if they're negotiable. You no longer turn yourself into an emotional contortionist to fit someone who hasn't even met themselves yet. Because now, you know the cost of betraying your inner feminine, and you're done paying it. The world may still try to tell you that you're too much, that you're too emotional, too sensitive, too intense. But what they really mean is, you're too awake for the game. And that's not something to fix, that's something to protect. Somewhere along the way, you stopped asking, why doesn't he love me? And started asking, why did I ever think I had to earn love in the first place? That's the breakthrough. That's the sacred unraveling, not of your worth, but of your conditioning. And as that unraveling continues, you begin to feel different in your own skin, more rooted, less rushed. You don't panic when a man pulls away. You don't jump into proving mode. You don't twist yourself up trying to be the most understanding, the most supportive, the most easy to love. You sit back, not in passivity, but in peace. Because now, you finally understand. The kind of love you desire can't be forced. It can only be received, and receiving means softening. Not into weakness, but into presence. You no longer need to rehearse what you'll say to be liked. You say what's real. You no longer need to guess where you stand. You ask. You no longer wait in the silence hoping he'll come around. You listen to the silence and let it speak, because now, your energy is no longer reaching out in desperation. It's calling inward. It's calling you back home to the self you lost in trying to be lovable. And in that homecoming, your standards change without effort. You no longer entertain breadcrumbs, because you finally know the taste of wholeness. You no longer cling to potential, because you're too busy living your truth. And when a man enters your space now, he feels the shift. He feels that you are no longer here to prove anything. You are not a test. You are not a project. You are not here to fix him, change him, or heal him. You are an invitation to depth, to presence, to truth. And the man who is ready, he will not run from that invitation. He will rise to it, not perfectly, not without fear, but with reverence, because the feminine, when embodied, demands reverence not with words, but with energy. And when you live in that energy, you no longer wonder if you're too much. You realize you were just too real for a world still clinging to the shallow. So now you're here, not at the end, but at the beginning of a different life. A life where you no longer shapeshift to be understood. A life where your love is not a performance but a presence. A life where how men treat you is no longer a mystery because you've become crystal clear about what you will and will not hold. You didn't get here through luck. You got here through heartbreak, through silence, through 1,000 quiet moments where you wanted to reach out and didn't. where you chose yourself instead of the pattern, where you sat with the ache instead of running back to comfort dressed as chaos. That's what becoming the woman you are now cost. And that cost? It was worth it. Because now you know something unshakable. The love that matches your heart will never ask you to abandon it. It will never require your silence, your shrinking, your survival mode. The love you've always longed for begins inside the feminine energy you exiled and finally welcomed home. And no, not everyone will meet you here. Some will leave when you no longer self-abandon for their comfort. Some will blame you for the boundaries you set. Some will miss the version of you that overfunctioned just to keep peace. Let them. Because the love you're aligned with now isn't fragile. It doesn't crack under honesty. It doesn't vanish when you reveal your depth. It sees your heart fully and stays present. That kind of love, it doesn't feel like a high. It feels like breath, like rest, like truth. So when he comes, whether it's someone new or someone reborn by the way you now hold yourself, you'll know. Not because of what he says, not because of what he promises, but because your nervous system will finally feel what it always craved. Safe, zen, honored, and until then, you'll still be whole. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting your heart enough to make this shift. If this spoke to you, if something deep inside you whispered yes, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Subscribe. Let others find their way back to the truth, just like you did. This isn't the end. It's your return.